police joined the community in a show of solidarity on the very corner where a young woman was gunned down.
I just can relate to what this family is going through, and it's very painful, and it just reminds me of that we need to get these guns off the street.
Neighborhood resident Demetric Brown knows all too well the pain of losing a child to gun violence. She lost her adult daughter in 2021. The Southsiders among a coalition of concerned who attended an outdoor roll call by officers from CPD's 6th District following the slaying of Gabryel Ayers, the 26-year-old mother who was killed in a car while her 14-month-old daughter was in the back seat.
We stand together, we continue to partner with one another, that you guys are willing to come forward and help us, give us information.
Investigators say the attack happened Wednesday afternoon as Ayers and a man sat in the car near 79th and May. 3 men opened fire on their vehicle, causing them to crash into a van.
February 4th, 2026, 1:20 in the afternoon. Chicago's South Side. Over 50 bullets ripped through a car in broad daylight. When the smoke clears, a 26-year-old mother named Gabrielle Ayers is dead in the front seat. Her boyfriend is bleeding, fighting for his life, but in the back seat, a 14-month-old baby girl sits completely untouched. Not a scratch. Not a single bullet grazed her. 3 men with automatic weapons ran up to that car and opened fire like it was a war zone. Then they disappeared into a red car, leaving behind shell casings, shattered glass, and a baby who will never remember her mother's face. This wasn't a random drive-by. This wasn't an accident. This was an execution. Planned, brutal, and carried out steps away from a church known for fighting violence. So the question everyone is asking is simple. Why? Why Gabrielle? Alice, why there? Why in front of her child? The answers investigators found would shock the entire community, because what looked like another tragic shooting in Chicago turned into something much bigger. Something that would expose secrets no one saw coming. Before we get into what really happened that day, I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed violence like this in your city? Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. Because what happened next? It changes everything. Before we talk about how Gabrielle Ayers died, we need to talk about how she lived. Gabrielle wasn't just another name in a news headline. She was 26 years old, a daughter, a mother, a woman with dreams that were finally starting to come true. She worked as a hairstylist in Chicago's Auburn Gresham neighborhood. If you've ever sat in a salon chair, you know what that means. Hairstylists don't just cut hair, they listen. They laugh with you. They become part of your life. Gabrielle had that gift. She made people feel good about themselves. She turned her creativity into a way to support her family. But she wanted more. Not because styling hair wasn't enough, but because she was building something bigger. Gabrielle was training to become a letter carrier for the Postal Service. Steady pay, benefits, security. The kind of job that would give her daughter a better future. Her mother talked about how proud she was of Gabrielle's ambition, how hard she worked to balance everything, and balance wasn't easy. Gabrielle had been with her boyfriend for 8 years. 8 years of building a life together in a neighborhood where just getting by takes strength. And they had a 14-month-old daughter, a little girl who was just starting to walk, just starting to say her first words. That baby was everything to Gabrielle. Auburn Gresham isn't an easy place to raise a family. It's a neighborhood that's been forgotten by a lot of people. High crime, limited resources, but it's also home. It's where people look out for each other, where churches like St. Sabina fight every day to keep hope alive. Gabrielle was part of that community. She knew the risks, but she also knew the love. On February 4th, it was just another Wednesday for her. Maybe she styled someone's hair that morning. Maybe she studied for her postal training. Maybe she played with her daughter, made her laugh, kissed her forehead before putting her in the car seat. It was supposed to be ordinary. She didn't know that by 1:20 that afternoon, her life would be over. She didn't know that 3 men were about to turn her regular Wednesday into her last day on Earth. She didn't know her daughter would be left without a mother before she was even old enough to remember her face. Gabryel Ayers was just like so many of us, working hard, loving her family, trying to build something better. And that's exactly why what happened to her matters. Because if it could happen to Gabrielle, a hairstylist, a mother, a woman just trying to make it could happen to anyone. February 4th, 2026, 1:20 in the afternoon. The 7900 block of South May Street in Auburn, Gresham. It's a residential area. Families live here. Kids walk home from school. People go about their daily routines. Gabrielle was in the car with her boyfriend. Their 14-month-old daughter was strapped safely in her car seat in the back. Maybe they were running errands, maybe heading home. It was the middle of the day, the kind of time when you feel safe, when you don't expect danger. But danger was already there. 3 men appeared. No masks, no hesitation. They walked up to the car like they had done this before, and in their hands, automatic weapons. What happened next lasted less than a minute, but it would destroy lives forever. They opened fire. The sound was deafening. Witnesses said it sounded like a war zone. Boom. One shot after another, so fast you couldn't count them. Someone nearby started recording on their phone. The video would later show at least 24 shots being fired. Some reports say more than 50 bullets were unleashed on that car. 50. Gabrielle didn't have time to run. She didn't have time to scream. It said the bullets tore through the vehicle, shattering windows, ripping through metal. She was hit multiple times. Her boyfriend sitting in the driver's seat was also struck again and again. The car lurched forward out of control. It crashed hard into a nearby GMC van. The impact was violent, but the van driver, shaken and terrified, refused medical treatment. He just wanted to get away from the scene. Inside the car, Gabrielle was gone. Her boyfriend was barely holding on, bleeding heavily but still alive. And in the back seat, somehow impossibly, the baby was untouched. Not a single bullet hit her, not one piece of glass cut her skin. She sat there surrounded by chaos and death, completely unharmed. People would later call it a miracle. Others would say it was God's protection. Either way, either that little girl survived what no one should ever have to witness. The 3 men didn't stick around. They ran back to a red car waiting nearby and sped off, disappearing into the streets before anyone could stop them. No arrests, no confrontation, just gone. Emergency services rushed to the scene. Paramedics pulled Gabrielle from the car and raced her to LCM Hospital. Doctors fought to save her, but the damage was too severe. She had been hit too many times. Gabryel Ayers was pronounced dead. Her boyfriend survived his injuries. He would recover physically. But the trauma of that day, that doesn't just heal. Here's what makes this even more shocking. This didn't happen in some hidden alley at 3 a.m. This was 1:20 in the afternoon. Broad daylight. On a street where people live. And it happened just steps away from St. Sabina Church, a place that has spent decades fighting against exactly this kind of violence. So the question started immediately. Who were these three men? Why did they target this car? Was Gabrielle the intended victim, or was it her boyfriend they wanted? Was this gang-related? A case of mistaken identity, or something else entirely? And most importantly, how do three men fire 50 shots in the middle of the day and just vanish? The answers would take time. But the community wasn't going to stay silent. When police arrived at the scene, they found a war zone. Shell casings were scattered everywhere, dozens of them. The car was riddled with bullet holes. Broken glass covered the pavement. Blood stained the seats. This wasn't just a shooting. It was an attack meant to kill. And Commander Andre Poston of the Gresham 6th District knew this case was different. He stood at the scene and made a promise to the community. We're here for you. We're out here. But promises aren't enough when three killers are still on the streets. Detectives got to work immediately. They collected every shell casing. They examined the bullet patterns. They interviewed witnesses who heard the shots and saw the chaos. And they had something crucial, social media video. Someone had recorded the attack. That footage showed at least 24 shots being fired and captured the moment the shooters ran back to their red getaway car. A red car. That was the lead. Police put out alerts. They checked traffic cameras. They asked the public for help identifying the vehicle. But here's the problem. No arrests were made. Not that day, not the next. And the three men who killed Gabryel Ayers in broad daylight had vanished. The community wasn't going to let this go. St. Sabina Church stepped up immediately and offered a $10,000 reward for any information leading to an arrest. Cook County Crime Stoppers matched it with another $10,000. That's $20,000 total for anyone willing to talk. Then something happened that almost never happens. On Friday, February 6th, the entire 6th District Police Force held their roll call right there at the corner of 79th and South May Street, the exact spot where Gabrielle was killed. Officers stood shoulder to shoulder, showing the neighborhood they weren't giving up. Commander Poston spoke directly to the crowd. We stand together. Give us information. It was a powerful moment, but information? That was harder to come by. People were scared. In neighborhoods like Auburn Gresham, talking to police can be dangerous. Snitches get targeted. Families get threatened. So even with $20,000 on the table, even with police standing right there, silence. So here's my question for you. What do you think really happened here? Was this a targeted hit? Or was Gabrielle just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Drop your theories in the comments below. Because as investigators kept digging, they discovered something that would change everything. Friday, February 6th. 2 days after Gabrielle's murder. Hundreds of people gathered at the corner of 79th and South May Street. They came to mourn, they came to pray, they came to demand justice. This wasn't just another vigil, this was a community saying enough is enough. Father Michael Flager from St. Sabina Church stood in front of the crowd, and he didn't hold back. His voice shook with anger and pain as he called the shooters exactly what they were. The people that pulled out automatic weapons on this very land that we stand on ran up in broad daylight and murdered Gabrielle are monsters to me. Monsters, that's the word he used. Because what else do you call someone who fires 50 bullets at a car with a baby inside? Father Pfleger looked directly into the crowd and said something even more powerful. Think of her. Think of that baby's face. Think of that mother laying in that car dead. And I pray you don't sleep until you talk and tell what you know. He wasn't just talking to witnesses. He was talking to anyone protecting these killers. Don't be silent, he said. Don't sit back. Because if you do, then you are a co-conspirator. Mayor Brandon Johnson was there too, and he spoke about the weight this tragedy carries. This tears at the soul of Chicago. Tragedies like this remind us of how much more work we have to do. State Senator Willie Preston asked the question everyone was thinking. When is this going to stop? When is it going to get safe again? In the crowd stood Demetric Brown. She knows this pain personally. In 2021, she lost her own daughter to gun violence. She looked at Gabrielle's family and said, I can just relate. We need to get these guns off the streets. That's the cycle in neighborhoods like Auburn, Gresham. Mothers burying daughters, grandmothers raising babies, grief that never ends. Violence interrupters in bright yellow jackets walked through the streets, trying to stop the next shooting before it happens. Community activist Jamal Green stepped up and promised to pay for Gabrielle's funeral after speaking with her mother. And Gabrielle's mother? She's now raising a 14-month-old baby while grieving the loss of her daughter. That little girl is safe, but she'll grow up without her mom. Alderman David Moore called the baby's survival a miracle. He said, if God didn't show that he was still God by protecting that baby, I don't know what else he can show you. But here's the heartbreaking truth. St. Sabina Church has spent decades fighting for peace. Father Pfleger has buried too many young people. And yet, just steps from that church, violence still wins. The community is tired, they're angry, and they're not staying quiet anymore. What investigators discovered next would turn this case on its head. At first, everyone assumed Gabrielle was the target. Her name was in the headlines. Her face was on the news. But as detectives dug deeper, a different picture started to form. What if Gabrielle wasn't supposed to die that day? Her boyfriend survived. He was shot multiple times, but he lived. And that raised a critical question. Was he the real target? Think about it. 3 men, automatic weapons, over 50 shots fired. That's not random. That's not a mistake. That's someone trying to make sure a person doesn't walk away alive. So why did the boyfriend survive when Gabrielle didn't? Detectives started looking into his background. Who was he connected to? Did he owe someone money? Was he involved in something that put a target on his back? The couple had been together for 8 years. Long enough for Gabrielle to know his life, his friends, his world. But did she know everything? Here's where it gets even more complicated. The shooting happened just steps away from St. Sabina Church. That's not a random location. St. Sabina is known across Chicago. Father Pfleger has been fighting gangs and gun violence for decades. He's loud, he's fearless, and he's made enemies. So was this shooting a message? A way to say, we can do whatever we want, even in front of your church? Some people in the community think so. They believe this wasn't just about Gabrielle or her boyfriend. It was about power, about showing that no place is safe. Then there's the weapon itself. Automatic gunfire in broad daylight means these weren't just street-level criminals. Automatic weapons are illegal. They're expensive. They're connected to serious players. Gangs with resources, with reach, with no fear of consequences. Detectives are still trying to track down the red getaway car. They're still analyzing the social media video frame by frame. They're still waiting for someone to come forward with the one piece of information that cracks this case wide open. But here's what we know for sure. Gabryel Ayers is dead. Her boyfriend is alive. And 3 men are still out there walking free. Was Gabrielle collateral damage? Was her boyfriend the real target? Or was this something even bigger? A message to an entire community? The truth is still out there. And it's darker than anyone expected. Gabrielle's story isn't unique. And that's the most heartbreaking part. Auburn Gresham is one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago. Gun violence here isn't rare. It's a reality people live with every single day. Families hear gunshots at night, and kids walk past memorials on their way to school. Mothers bury their children far too young. The South Side has been dealing with this for decades. Poverty is high. Jobs are scarce. Schools are underfunded. When young people don't see a future, gangs offer them one. Money, protection, belonging. It's a trap, but for some, it feels like the only option. And the weapons? That's where things get even worse. Automatic guns aren't supposed to be in civilian hands. They're illegal, but they're everywhere. Gangs get them through illegal trafficking, modifications, and connections that law enforcement struggles to shut down. When shooters have access to that kind of firepower, innocent people like Gabrielle don't stand a chance. Then there's the code of silence. People see things, they hear things, but they don't talk. Why? It's because snitching can get you killed. Witnesses are scared. Families are threatened. So even when there's a $20,000 reward, even when police are begging for information, people stay quiet. And killers stay free. This cycle doesn't just affect criminals. It affects everyone. Mothers like Gabrielle, who are just trying to build a better life. Kids like her daughter, who will grow up without a parent. Communities that feel abandoned by the systems that are supposed to protect them. Policing alone can't fix this. Education alone can't fix this. You need jobs, you need resources, you need hope. But when a neighborhood has been ignored for so long, when generation after generation grows up in trauma, violence becomes normal. Gabrielle wasn't in a gang. She wasn't involved in crime. She was a hairstylist, a mother, a woman with dreams. But she lived in a place where violence doesn't care who you are. And until we address the root causes, poverty, guns, lack of opportunity, stories like Gabriel's will keep happening. That's not just a Chicago problem. That's an American problem. So what can we do? How do we stop the next Gabryel Ayers from being killed? It starts with breaking the silence. If you know something, say something. Anonymous tip lines exist for a reason. You can call Cook County Crime Stoppers at 800-5357-867. You can contact the Gresham District CAPS office at 312-74-53641. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to put yourself at risk. But your information could be the key to getting killers off the streets. Second, we need real gun control. Automatic weapons should not be in the hands of civilians. Period. Its law enforcement needs better tools to trace illegal guns, shut down trafficking routes, and hold people accountable for modifications that turn regular firearms into killing machines. Stronger laws save lives. Third, we need to invest in communities like Auburn Gresham. Job training programs, affordable childcare, better schools. When young people have real opportunities, they don't need to join gangs to survive. Economic investment isn't charity, it's crime prevention. Fourth, Violence interrupters work. These are people from the community, often former gang members themselves, who step in before conflicts turn deadly. They mediate, they counsel, they save lives. Programs like this need more funding, more support, more recognition. Fifth, we can't ignore trauma. Gabrielle's boyfriend survived physically, but what about emotionally? As her mother is raising a baby while grieving her daughter. Her daughter will grow up with this weight. Trauma-informed care, therapy, counseling, support groups needs to be free and accessible in every neighborhood dealing with violence. Sixth, we need to amplify voices like Father Pfleger's. Faith leaders, activists, and community organizers are on the front lines every single day. They know what their neighborhoods need. Listen to them, support them, fund their work. Change doesn't happen overnight. But it does happen when people refuse to accept violence as normal. Gabrielle's baby deserves to grow up in a world where her mother's story is rare, not common. Auburn Gresham deserves resources, not neglect. Chicago deserves better. Hope isn't naive. Hope is necessary. Because every time a community comes together, like they did at that vigil, like they did with that $20,000 reward, they're saying we're not giving up, and neither should we. Gabrielle's legacy doesn't have to be just tragedy. It can be the spark that finally changes things. Gabrielle's daughter will never remember her mother's face. She'll never hear her laugh. She'll never feel her arms around her. But she will know her story. And she'll know that her mother loved her more than anything in this world. There's an empty chair in a salon somewhere. A hairstyling station that Gabrielle will never return to. A postal service uniform she'll never get to wear. Dreams that died on February 4th, 2026 at 1:20 in the afternoon. But justice? That's still possible. The $20,000 reward still stands. 3 men are still out there. And someone knows who they are. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it. Awareness saves lives. Subscribe so you never miss a case that needs attention, and comment below. What state or country are you watching from? Let's build a community that demands change. If you have any information about this case, call the Gresham District CAPS office at 312-745-3641 or Cook County Crime Stoppers at 800-535-7867. You can remain anonymous. Gabrielle Ayers was 26 years old. She was a mother, a daughter, a hairstylist, a dreamer. She was building a future for her child. She deserved better. Her baby deserves justice. Her community deserves justice. And so do we all.